Hail Ogsal, my tribe, and welcome to the Modern Barbarian podcast. I'm going to try something a little bit different today again. I found a song that I listened to a bunch in my past that the lyrics of really have started to reach out and mean something to me in today's day and age. So we're going to try a song review. I want to read these lyrics to you and talk about what each section of them mean to me now as I review them. This song was quite controversial when it came out, and now you can almost not find it on the internet anywhere. It's been completely scrubbed from YouTube entirely. It's been completely scrubbed from most online sources. Even finding places that will talk about it are difficult, as we find the socialists take over the media more and more and more. It gets more and more difficult to find music and media that they don't like as they begin to use their tools for censorship. So I am going to share some of these. I cannot actually sample the song due to copyright laws, but I can read the lyrics to you and we can talk about what they're saying. So let's jump off into it and give this a try, shall we? The song is Critical Acclaim by Avenged Sevenfold. Come out in the mid 20 teens in that region somewhere. And they were talking about a lot of the problems going on with the socialists and their censorship of everybody. So I'm going to read it exactly as is. There are a little bit of expletives in it, but I think it's part of what makes it great. So let's get right into it, shall we? The first stanza, I think that's what they're called, whatever. I'm not a musical, major. I'm probably going to get some terms wrong, but that's all right. But the first paragraph of lyrics, if you will, say, shh, quiet, might piss somebody off. Like me, motherfucker, you've been at it for too long. While you feed off others' insecurities, you stand in front of me and bite the hand that feeds. So, he starts off very strong, right from the get-go, right? Talking about how they try to silence everyone and everything has to be about not offending anyone. Every word is supposed to be carefully measured and weighed before it's spoken to make sure that it is inclusive to every person on the planet and that nobody might be offended so that they may not come after you and try and cancel you on Twitter or whatever. Next line says, like me, motherfucker, comma, you've been at it for too long. It's two separate thoughts there. He's saying that they have pissed him off, right? All this stuff going on in this country have angered him. He's no longer allowed to be free, to think freely, to speak freely without fear of reprisal from mainstream media, crazy liberal socialists who think that everybody should believe exactly what they believe, etc. And then he says, you've been at it for too long, saying that they have been given free rein to behave this way with no consequences for too long. And they've been doing it in the background and becoming progressively stronger and more open about it as they gain more and more power to continue trying to ruin people for their beliefs. The next phrase is, while you feed off others' insecurities, you stand in front of me and bite the hand that feeds. So, to me, this means that they are using the victim class, right? People in power are drawing in this victim class by telling them that they're special and that they deserve special treatment and that they'll be taken care of if they just vote for them or if they just use their social media brand or their platform or whatever it is. If they'll tribalize themselves with these companies, these, huge corporations that couldn't give a shit less about them, if they will just tribalize themselves and do whatever they're told by these people, they will be taken care of. They're feeding off their insecurities. You also see this in the movements themselves, not just the corporations, how they tell the people that if you're not like us, maybe there's something wrong with you, or that if you don't believe what we believe and choose to do what we tell you to do, then we will ruin your lives. So they feed off the insecurity of the people that are afraid for their own well-being, afraid for their livelihood, for defending and protecting and providing for their tribes, and having that ability taken away by these people. And he says, you stand in front of me and bite the hand that feeds. So to me, this is a statement of the middle class and the working class of America are predominantly right-leaning, I guess you'd say, conservative values, even if they're not siding with the Republicans anymore. They are typically more conservative. They have to work hard for their money, nothing's given to them, and they care about themselves, their tribe, and so many of them, their country, to a tribal level. But they don't really care about everyone, and they don't think that it's their job to subsidize bad behavior and poor decisions. And the other side that this song is talking about, they stand in front of them, receiving these handouts, receiving all this help, demanding that they be given all of this money and these resources that they didn't have any hand in earning, and then come back and say, well, you're not allowed to be that way because I don't like it. Or you can't own that type of firearm because I don't like it. Or you can't behave that way or do those things because I don't like it. Now, give me this money, feed me, give me your resources, but I'm going to tell you that you're not allowed to be who you want to be. So they stand there and they bite the hand that feeds. The next stanza. Self-righteousness is wearing thin, lies inside your head, your best friend. Heart bleeds, but not for fellow men. Broken glass, your fake reflection. So, self-righteousness is wearing thin. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. He's calling them self-righteous and saying that their shit is wearing thin, right? That we don't care anymore. That they believe that their cause is righteous, and they stand up and they beat their chest and they scream from the mountaintops about how important their cause is while they feed little kids in South Africa, or they tackle the 300 deaths that happen by rifles every year by calling everything an assault rifle and trying to take away your ability to defend yourself. Or, here's a good one, claiming that the largest cause of death in children is guns, while including 18 to 21-year-olds and children so that they can capture gang violence in that number. That's a real statistic. You should look into that. When they claim this, guns kill more children than anything in America, they're including anyone under 21 years of age as children. They're including all the gang violence that happens in their inner cities with guns that they outlawed and the criminals don't care. And they get to include all the gang violence deaths as killing children with guns. Yeah, those are not fucking kids. Those are criminals. But it's all self-righteousness. It's all wearing thin with all of us. And has been for a decade. And he says, the lies inside your head, your best friend. He's calling them out on lying to themselves. That they actually believe what they're saying, even though it's a lie. And that it's their best friend. That they need these lies in order to survive. Their whole identity is based around these self-perpetuated lies that they believe. And they continue to believe. And they believe that if them and enough people believe the lie becomes the truth. And these lies are their best friends because they can do nothing without them, and their entire lives revolve around them. Heart bleeds, but not for fellow men. Broken glass, your fake reflection. So, this is about the bleeding heart cause, right? This is about, two things I think here. One, Avenged Sevenfold was very pro-military, especially at the time that this was written. and they talk about these people that have the bleeding hearts but are not willing to bleed for their fellow men. So we're talking about those that think that they should get a bigger say in the society because they are more advanced or more mature or whatever it is, and they have these bleeding hearts for all these causes, but they're not actually willing to bleed for anything at all. There's nothing in their life that's worth them putting themselves in any kind of danger or bleeding for. They are keyboard commandos that cry on the internet and whine and bitch at these little rallies where they're surrounded by 100,000 other people like them, where they can feel safe, but they're not actually doing anything. So they have bleeding hearts, but not for their fellow men. And broken glass, your fake reflection. I can't say exactly what he meant there, but to me, he's talking about the distortion of what they see themselves as. They see themselves as these warriors for the cause, right? They see themselves as punching Nazis in the face and taking on the unfairness and unjustness of the world, one crybaby rant and one fucking fit thrown at a time. Steal a TV, change the world kind of shit. It's a self-distortion. These people believe that they're actually doing good. They believe that what they're doing will work and that it's the right path and that they will fix the world with their flaws and their faults and their thefts and their fits instead of actually doing something meaningful that might actually cause real change. The next stanza. I've had enough. It's time for something real. I don't respect the words you're speaking. Gone too far. A clone. Let's break that one down. Well, I mean, I've had enough. That makes pretty much no explanation there. Enough of this bullshit. We're not doing this. It's time for something real. And this is the chorus, mind you. This will get repeated a bunch. We'll only talk about it once. But he's saying that all the fakeness has to go. He doesn't have time for the lies and the bullshit and the social justice crap anymore. This is enough, right? He's calling a spade and saying we're done with this. I don't respect the words you're speaking. Gone too far, a clone. So here he's stating that they're all spouting the same nonsense. None of them are thinking for themselves. They're just repeating talking points. They are literally little clones of each other. They're all weak. They're all meaningless. They're all NPCs, if you will. This is before that term became popular for those type of people, but they're clones. They're cookie-cutter people. They all think the same thing because they believe what they've been told to believe by their socialist leaders. And because of that, we don't respect the words they're speaking. They've gone too far. They're too far over the edge. If they had a legitimate opinion and wanted to have some kind of civil discourse about what they thought would actually make a difference, besides taking away our constitutional rights that we will never give up, not ever, for any reason. But they don't come to the table with solutions. They only come to the table with problems. And their only solution is to take away the rights of the warrior classes that they fear. Because that's really what it all comes down to. They're scared of the warriors within their own boundaries, and they want to make sure that the only time those warriors are allowed to be armed is outside the boundaries, because inside the boundaries, they're fucking horrified and terrified of us. So they use these crises that happen, the 300 or so deaths that happen by rifles of any kind, let alone just their assault rifles every year, and they try to take them away from everybody because that's what they're scared of. They're scared of people like me, and they're scared of people like you that own these and know how to use them and that fall into the warrior class. The modern barbarians, the ones who don't believe their shit and are willing to fight back to prevent it from taking over their life. Now, this part was a spoken verse in the song, and it carried a lot of meaning for me when it first came out. And I was at an Avenged Sevenfold concert a couple weeks ago with some tribe members and the family, and they actually didn't play this song. The venue we were at was taken over and had the we won't tolerate any kind of speech that we don't approve of signs everywhere. They call it hate speech. And maybe some shit is hate speech, right? That's there for a reason. Racism, bigotry, all that shit, it's bad. Real racism, real bigotry, real hate is bad. But they've mislabeled that term now, and they claim anything that you say that they don't believe is now racist or bigoted or hate speech, so that they have a right to only hear the words that they want to hear. But I defer. So, the spoken verse is, so how does it feel to know that someone's kid in the heart of America has blood on their hands fighting to defend your rights, so you can maintain a lifestyle that insults his family's existence? Where I'm from, we have a special salute that we aim high in the air towards all those pompous assholes who spend their days pointing fingers. And then says, fuck you. So he's very clear in his message here, but let's talk about it a little bit, right? So how does it feel to know that someone's kid in the heart of America has blood on their hands fighting to defend your rights? So he's pointing out that very few people on that side are willing to put their lives in danger, right? Very few people on that side are willing to stand up and face danger and run towards the sound of the guns to defend the freedoms of this country that they take for granted and then try to use as a cudgel against us to take away the freedoms they don't like, right? And they say things like, the founding fathers could never have understood the way that weapons would have advanced today, so clearly those weapons can't be protected by an amendment to the Constitution that they wrote 200 years ago, because I don't like those things, so we come up with this excuse, right? All while claiming freedom of speech on a computer or a cell phone, right? Those didn't exist. And there's absolutely no way that the founding fathers would have believed that we would have the entirety of human knowledge in a 3x6 square that we put in our pocket. That you could replace a camera and a recording device and a computer that they didn't even know existed. That you would be able to take portraits, that you would be able to have every book ever written in the palm of your hand in one device. There's absolutely no way that they would ever fathom that to be real. But that's clearly included in the First Amendment and freedom of speech, to have access to those, how to use those, what you can say on those. But somehow that doesn't apply to the Second Amendment, because they don't believe that the founding fathers could have foreseen those types of guns, even though things like the Puckle gun existed, that was a 12-shot semi-rapid fire cannon that they used on boarding ships, or that privateering was one of the reasons that we were able to win the Revolutionary War, where private citizens owned warships with actual cannons on them. So yeah, fuck you, Joe Biden, you can own a freaking cannon. And we have the entirety of the existence of this country been allowed to own cannons, and those cannons and those warships, privately owned warships, mind you, are part of the reason that this country exists. So, yeah, they're unwilling to fight to defend the rights that they use as a cudgel against you. And after that, he says, also, you can maintain a lifestyle that insults his family's existence. And that's true, right? Everything they do, they take for granted off the backs of the working class, and they steal from them through government taxes, and then bitch about having to pay those taxes themselves, even though they get all that money back at the end of the year, plus some of our money. And they take their handouts and they complain about the big corporations that are paying the taxes, and they complain about the conservatives that are paying the taxes that they're using to pilfer off of the surplus of our labor, and then use that to survive instead of working hard for themselves, and insult our very existence by calling us toxic or stupid or rednecks or all these other terms that they come up with to tell us how backwards we are because we don't believe like them, and that we should just shut up and go to work so that they can have their benefits, but give up all of our rights so that they can be happy. It's insulting to your very existence that they believe this way. And then the best part, well, where I'm from, we have a special salute that we aim high in the air towards those pompous assholes who spend their days pointing fingers. That salute right there. And you can get one from me too. And then they repeat the first chorus type thing. Says, shh, be quiet, might piss somebody off. And then they go into different words. Like the heartbeat of this country when antagonized too long. I'll be damned if you count me in as part of your generous hypocrisy, collecting enemies. So, the heartbeat of this country is a pretty clear statement. We know who that is. We know which people have carried this country through. Now, we on this podcast, we modern barbarians, we believe slightly different even than those that would be considered the heartbeat of this country. We deal with the same problems that those people do in a different way, right? The surplus of our labor is stolen from us to feed a government and a socialist side of the country that we don't agree with. But we also don't really agree with the heartbeat of America that what we had before all the socialism was the right way, right? We're tribalist. We believe in taking care of our unit, our group. And as long as all the groups take care of themselves, we can get along and be a country, right? The problem is the difference in belief in the size of those groups. A lot of modern men look at the group as big as a whole state or as big as a whole country, where you cannot in any possible way fathom how many people that actually is. There are billions of people in the world, right? And just to put it this way, if you were to spend your entire life just trying to learn the names of the people in the world, your only goal is you spent 6 seconds and you wrote down every name of every person in the world. In 100 years, you would go through about 6 million names without food, without sleep, without bathroom breaks, without nothing. If you did absolutely nothing but sit at a desk and write a name once every 6 seconds, you could get through about 6 million names in 100 years. You wouldn't know anything about any of those people. You would never have met any of those people. You would have never done anything fun with any of those people. You would only get about 6 million names that you wouldn't remember down on paper. And there's 6 billion-ish people in the world. It's a whole order of 10 off. You would need to do that for 1,000 years to even get close, right? You can't even fathom how many people that actually is. But somehow you're supposed to care about every single one of them and believe that it's your responsibility to make sure every one of them is taken care of? Absolutely not. That is asinine. So the scale with which we believe is the difference between us and what would be considered the heartbeat of the country, I think. But it does point out we've been antagonized far too long, and we fall into that category right along with them. This country is closer to a civil war than it has ever been outside of the actual Civil War. I think we may actually be engaged in soft civil war, like the Cold War was, where we are actively trying to subversively hurt each other within the country, one side versus the other. And we see this every day. Each group is attacking the other. We've got impeachment proceedings on every president for the last 10 years. There is nobody that hasn't been investigated by the radicals of each side, whether deserved or not. There's some stuff Trump did, said some stuff about women that shouldn't probably be said, but I mean, come on, we've all said some shit that probably shouldn't be said, even the people that were investigating them. I don't think that has anything to do with running a country, but it is what it is. And then Trump began the weaponization of the ATF against our rights with the bump stock shit. He showed them that path. He showed them the way. He told them to use executive action to institute gun control. We're still fighting that, trying to get it back, and that was Trump. So, both sides suck. But we also have a president now who's clearly been taking bribes through his son for access all the way since he was the vice president, and is clearly still taking bribes, and obviously it's had to stop since the investigation into his son started, but deserves whatever he gets. So, rightfully so, maybe they should be impeached for their actions. I don't know, but I do know that it's been weaponized by each side. We are the closest to a civil war we've ever been. People hate each other. The socialists hate us. We're not super fond of them. We could probably say that we hate them too. Uh, and we both think that we'd be better off if all the other ones were gone. That's the basis for the start of a civil war. When you create two factions of different types of people in a country, and you make them live next to each other all the time, and you make them hate each other, and then the politics actively pit them against each other, telling their side that the other side is the cause of all their problems. That's how you create hate and discontent in the population and get them to want to kill each other. So, next line. I'll be damned if you count me in as part of your generous hypocrisy. So, because the band is famous and they were expected to fall in line with mainstream media and only pass the narratives that they were told to pass. Clearly, with this song, they took a stand against that. Now, I don't know how much you know about them, but between the issues with this song and some issues with a band member who died, Avenged Sevenfold disappeared for quite a few years, not long after this, and have started coming back in the last couple of years, rightfully so. A great band, they make good music. You should check them out. But this particular song here was a very controversial song for them that caused a lot of problems. The metal community has some of the socialists in it, and they turned on them as fast as they could to tell them that they needed to shut up about their politics and just play music, while praising all of their musicians on their side for making music about politics. So he made it very clear that he would not be part of their hypocrisy. He would not use his wealth and power to tell those without wealth and power that they could steal it from the middle class who don't really have wealth and power. They just work hard for their stuff. And he talks about collecting enemies. Collecting enemies, again, I think that's the comment on the Civil War thing, right? Each side is collecting enemies. He may not have been talking about the conservatives, as he is one, but it goes for both sides. Each side is collecting enemies and preparing for war. The next verse. Tabloid gossip queen, worthless man. There's no need for us to bury you. Selfish agenda once again. Right this way, you've dug your own grave. So, talking about those that are famous now. The gossip queens, the worthless men, those in the tabloids. He's saying that we don't need to go after them, that their selfish agenda will expose itself, and they've dug their own grave with their beliefs and their actions. I do believe that this particular verse has been proven to be false. That the tabloid gossip queens, the media influencers, the e-girls, all of them, the useless men who spend their days screaming and crying on the internet, we do actually need to bury them. We do need to actively be against them. We need to be putting our own voice out like this, and we need to be sharing it with our groups and actively creating a media presence for ourselves, because these people are out there and they're reaching people by the millions and they're converting them to their cause. And as any good guerrilla leader knows, you must use the tools of the enemy against them. Podcasts, social media, YouTube, these are tools of our enemies, and we should be using them against them. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put out a different side, a counter narrative, a stronger counter narrative than is even out there on most of the right-wing media about how wrong these people are, and that we must be prepared for the coming problems, the coming war. I do believe that there is a very real possibility of an actual civil war in this country. A hot war, not the Cold War, Civil War that we're in, not this soft war, but an active armed conflict amongst neighbors of different beliefs across the country. The Their selfish agenda did not dig their own grave. Their selfish agenda has been upheld by mobs of radical leftist socialists who have funded them and continued to allow them to talk because they've taken over the mainstream media. And you see podcasts like mine get 3 fucking views sometimes because they try to hide it. So the only thing we can do is we can share it with all those we think would enjoy it ourselves, because they're not going to share it for us. They're going to use their tools to actively try to silence those of us who speak out, those of us who believe in the tribal mindset, the modern barbarians. They will actively try to shut us down. So it's up to us. It's up to us to make this content. It's up to us to put it out there. It's up to us to find songs like this that exist, that were made by brave musicians, or movies that are made by brave actors that actually share our side of the story, and we must portray them. We must share the media that's out there that talks about our cause, and make sure that we're doing the promotion for these people so that they get seen and this stuff gets out there and it can't be controlled and censored by the socialist media. Then we go to the chorus again. I've had enough. It's time for something real. I don't respect the words you're speaking. Gone too far. A clone. Again, telling them what they are. Talking point clones. Gone over the edge. No belief in the rights of Americans anymore. Only the fear that they have been pushed upon them and now currently fully believe in, and to take the rights of all those that they can so that they might live in a little bit of safety, even though once that's all gone, they won't be safe at all. All right, another spoken verse. All the way from the east to the west, we got this high society looking down on their very foundation, constantly reminding us that our actions are the cause of all their problems, pointing their fingers in every direction and blaming their own nation for who wins the elections. They've never contributed a fucking thing to the country they love to criticize. Like, that's a very, very strong statement, right? So, there's high society, the social elites, the socialists that consider themselves above everybody else, and the ruling class that consider themselves above everybody else, looking down on their very foundation, the people that built this country, the people that keep this country running. We build your roads. We fix your electronics. We keep your electricity running. We provide you with vehicles. We provide you with fuel. We provide you with homes. We provide you with food. Everything that they have, everything that these socialists have, that they need to survive, is provided by the foundation of this country that they despise. They could never grow their own food, build their own things, make their own fuel. Maybe if they were in a video game they could, but in real life they cannot. They don't have the skills. But they stand there and they look down at the foundation of the country that does build this shit, and they tell them how wrong and backwards they are, that they need to go back to being their little worker drone slaves and give them the surplus of their labor, all while being told how wrong they are for how they believe. They're constantly reminding us that our actions are the cause of all their problems. And you see it every day in every bit of media, in the news, in the movies, in the politics, in the radio, and all of it, right? The fact that we believe that we have a right to own guns is the reason kids are dying in droves. No, it's not the reason that kids are dying in droves. Fucking mental health is the reason that kids are dying in droves. And I wonder who's fucking with their mental health so much, Maybe it's you telling them that they need to grow up to be non-binary, fucking gender-confused people, right? And you start telling them this at 3 and 4 years old, and then shoving hormones in their body to ruin their fucking minds. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't give a shit if you're gay. What you do in the privacy of your own home, who you sleep with, how you sleep with them, who you pick as your partner, I don't give a shit, right? But I do care that you try to indoctrinate children. That's a problem, right? And I get that you believe, I say you, like any of them are fucking listening to this, but They believe that we are brainwashing their children into not being like them. And honestly, I don't give a shit, right? I'm not brainwashing any kids. I don't give a shit about their kids. I care about my kids, my tribe. And they need to keep their grubby fucking fingers out of the raising of my children. And I'll do the same for theirs. They can turn their kids into whatever the fuck they want. But they can't have mine. They can't have yours. They need to do it in the privacy of their own home with their own freedoms. Again, all their problems, our actions are the causes of all their problems, right? That's an even stronger statement than just them pointing fingers, right? That is them allocating blame outside of themselves. That everything they do is perfect and everything we do is wrong because they have no power of introspection. They're not willing to take a look in the mirror and think about the things that they're doing wrong. It always has to be somebody else's fault because they're victims. It's victim mentality. In the Nietzschean philosophy sense, it's resentment. That everybody's holding them down, everybody's against them, and their life would be perfect, and they'd be on fucking yachts drinking Mai Tais with topless chicks or whatever the fuck they want to believe in, if it wasn't for us standing in their way and actively working against them and ruining their lives. It's not them choosing to be 30 years old and working dead-end fucking jobs because they were too lazy to go to school and talk about this crippling student loan debt. Listen, I got student loan debt too, right? Thousands and thousands of dollars of it. But I tripled my monthly income by going to fucking college so I can afford to pay the goddamn bills. You can do the same thing. Just don't spend $100,000 to get a goddamn degree in underwater basket weaving. Nobody's fucking paying for that shit. Nobody cares about your gender studies or your social equality degree or any of that shit. Go learn to do something useful. Society rewards useful people. That's just the way it is. Those that have the money have it because they produced something that people needed and wanted and were willing to give up some of their resources to have. If they're not building anything, if they're not making anything worth a fucking resource, then they're going to be poor. So get up off your ass and go do something about it. If you're listening to this podcast and you're in a spot where you don't make any money and you believe any of these things that you're hearing me talk about, get in touch with me. I can help you get better. But you got to get off your ass and go start making something worthwhile that people actually want. Provide a service, provide a good, provide knowledge or skill that is hard to come by, and you will be well paid for it. So, pointing their fingers in every direction and blaming their own nation for who wins the elections. Well, we can tell that this one's a little dated, right? The song's old. This was back during the time when the right actually won elections. This was the first part of the Donald Trump years, I do believe, is when this came out. And they whined and they cried that Hillary Clinton didn't win. And they blamed the nation for being so backwards and that we were all stupid and that we were all racist and bigots and we just elected a racist bigot because the whole country was a racist bigot country and all that stuff. Right? But they figured out how to fix that, didn't they? Right? Cheat their fucking ass off every step of the way. They sure figured out how to fix that. And then use the mainstream media to hide it. But it's still, the lyrics now still point out the hypocrisy, right? When they lose elections, they can't win fair and square. They run a mentally handicapped person, basically, who has been taking bribes through his son for decades as he was in political power to become millionaires. And then he sits in a freaking basement. He never campaigns, never says a word, and somehow gets the most votes that any president has ever gotten in the history of the United States. In the middle of a pandemic, he gets absolutely no campaigning done whatsoever, any realistic campaigning, and then gets more votes than any president has ever received in the history of the United States. And we're supposed to believe that there's no election fraud. We're supposed to believe that that's 100% above board. Well, my ass, right? And then he says, they've never contributed a fucking thing to the country they love to criticize. And man, I can't say it any better than that. Most of the people who believe that way are in the useless freaking category. They make movies that we don't need to survive. We may like them, but we don't need them. Or they work the jobs that anybody could do, and we don't need them. Or they're the CEO of some major corporation, or they run some kind of friggin' news outlet that lies to us and we'd be better off without them. Or they censor you through their social media and we'd be better off without them. Right? It's all horseshit. They're not contributing anything meaningful to any of our tribes, let alone a country. They're not even contributing meaningful to any tribal level of life, and especially not the country. So, next phrase, or stanza, or whatever. Excuse the obscene, ignore the untrue. Depictions we see, try and get through. Admitting mistakes can hurt. I'm not the last, but I sure ain't the first. So, the excuse the obscene and ignore the untrue, right? So, I'm going to go off on what I think it means by this, and I may get it wrong, but that particular side, the people we're talking about, they do excuse the obscene. There was literally a festival in San Francisco the other day. One of the drawbacks to having a social media presence to try and get this stuff out there to my barbarian tribes is that I have to have social media accounts, and I sometimes get notifications about stuff. And one was on X the other day, and that's what I'm going to call it from now on out, by the way. I think Twitter has become X. It is no longer the bastion of liberal nonsense that it used to be. X is now owned by somebody who very well may be on our side. I don't know. I think Elon Musk is closer to on our side than any of the other ones who own social media. So I'm going to call it X because it's something new. But on X the other day, I'm seeing photos and videos of this rally, party, whatever it is, big social gathering event in San Francisco. And there's a fucking kiddie pool there where grown men lay down in a kiddie pool and get pissed on by other grown men right there in the streets of San Francisco. And that's just normal behavior at this friggin' party or this social event, whatever the hell they call it, right? Fair, gathering, like big to do, not just some people getting together like an actual, like a convention kind of thing, right? A lot of people go there for this. And there's people there with kiddie pools getting paid to piss on people in the street. It's obscene. But it's excused because it's part of their new normal, right? This thing that they want everybody to find, to be depraved and open about sexual depravity and in the street and in your face and all this shit. And they'll literally lay down in the street and be pissed on right in front of God and everybody, right? It's obscene. So they excuse the obscene, right? And then ignore the untrue. I think it's a statement that they get to decide what they believe is untrue, and then they just ignore it. Whether it be the truth or not. Whether it actually be true, like the truth itself. That can be a thing. And they just decide that it's not true. That it's fake news, right? That this fact is inconvenient to them, so they decide that it's untrue and they ignore it. I think that's what's meant there. Depictions we see and try and get through. Well, I think I also just covered that too, right? The things that we are forced to see every day in this country, in the world now, due to how far gone these people are, and just openly admit how far gone they are and are proud of it and put it out there. And now it's literally videos on the internet of grown men pissing on other grown men in the streets. And we just have to try and survive this shit, right? And just try and get through it, because it's a fucking landmine field everywhere you go. You're bombarded with this stuff, this nastiness, this depravity, this... I mean, honestly, they're a cult. You know, they are a widespread cult of disbelief, and if you're not part of their cult, then fuck you, there's something wrong with you kind of mentality. And that's what we're trying to ward off as the Barbarians. To build our own tribes where we don't allow our tribes and our children to believe this shit. And again, I want to be clear so that nobody hears this wrong, and some people may take offense to this that listen to my thing, but I don't give a fuck if you're gay. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care what you do in the privacy of your own home. I don't care who you love. I don't care who you marry. I don't care about any of that shit, right? This is not anti-gay discussion. But depravity is depravity regardless. If you are pulling your genitals out in public and urinating on people, or openly having sex in a public place, or, just being lewd and crude in general for the sake of being lewd and crude, I have an issue with that. And I don't believe that we should be subjecting ourselves to that on a regular basis. And it's hard to be on the internet nowadays without that shit being shoved in your face. And you just got to try and get through it. Admitting mistakes can hurt. I'm not the last, but I sure ain't the first. So, I think this is his statement of saying, like, he's been quiet for too long. He's not said anything. He was there for the money and was working on it, and just stayed in the background and didn't raise a concern, didn't use his voice to say things because it was so controversial. And he's admitting that it was a mistake and saying that he's not the last to do it, but he sure isn't the first to do it either. Everybody's made mistakes, right? But he's taken this step out there by putting this song out there, the whole group is, and saying that we don't believe in this trash. And it costs them a little bit, but I respect them, and I have rediscovered them again lately. I never stopped listening to them. I liked a lot of their music, but I had forgotten about this song until at that concert when I got to thinking about it, and I listened to it on the way home. And it reminded me how much I respect these people as musicians for putting this out there. All right, then we go back to quiet, might piss somebody off. Self-righteousness is wearing thin. Lies inside your head, your best friend. Heart bleeds, but not for fellow men. Broken glass, your fake reflection. I've had enough. It's time for something real. I don't respect the words you're speaking. Gone too far. Acclaim. And that's where the song ends, right? He reminds them all that you got to be quiet so you don't piss somebody off, and that he's making a stand against that and he doesn't care. He tells them that they're being self-righteous and that their shit is wearing thin, that their lies in their head are their best friend, that their bleeding hearts are pointed in the wrong directions and they care not for their fellow men, that their fake-ass reflections, their broken, shattered, distorted beliefs of who they actually are wrong, and that they need to take a look in a real mirror, not their distorted, broken one that tells them that they're the fucking heroes. He says he's had enough. It's time for something real. That he does not respect them or the word they're speaking. That they've gone too far. That they're a clone. And man, this is just a really powerful song. Really, really powerful song. And it spoke to me. It stood out to me. And it needed to be said. It needed to be reviewed. It needed to be put back out there into the media. It needed to be shown in my world that there are people out there who are willing to speak our cause, that we are not alone, that there are even those out there with a voice much larger than ours that believe, at least in some way, the way that we believe. The Barbarians exist. We are out there. It may take us years to find each other. It may be long, hard, arduous road. It may be difficult, but it is a road worth traveling. It is a road worth taking. Building these tribes is worthwhile. Doing what we're doing is worthwhile. I'm talking directly to you. Those of you that watch this in a video podcast, I'm staring you in the face right now. Those of you that are listening, listen to the sound of my words. What we are doing is worthwhile. Sorry. What we're doing is worthwhile. What we're up against is big. And we have to take it back. We're going to lose our fucking country. Ugh. We're going to lose our country. We're going to lose our families. We're going to lose our tribes. And if we're not careful, we'll lose our very lives. They're taking our rights for a reason. They hate us for a reason. because we are the last stand between them and ultimate power and their little socialist utopia. We stand between them and everything that they think is perfect in this world. And they want to get it off of your back, either by killing you or forcing you into wage slavery so that they can live the life that they want to live. We are the last bastion of hope against that. And it is our job to build tribes and stand against them. So with that, please like and subscribe, right? If you're on YouTube, hit the little notification bell so that you get this out there and share this with people. I feel like this is a powerful message today. I feel like this one, and you can find the song. I actually was able to find it. Spotify still plays it. Again, I can't sample it for copyright reasons or they'll pull me off the friggin' internet. But you can just go to Spotify and sign up for free and you can listen to this song. It's the only place on the internet that I found that it hasn't been pulled. And it is hard rock, right? So most everybody here should like it. If you haven't heard it, go listen to the song. Especially now that you've listened to this and you've got some context as to what the lyrics are and what I believe they mean. I think this song will really speak to you. It could be an anthem for the modern barbarian tribe. It could be an anthem that we can rally behind. So let's get this out there. Let's get the message out there. Let's get people listening to that song again. Let's get people believing in this shit again. Let's get people standing up for what's right again. Use the social media, right? I put it out there. I'm taking the risk to have all this out there so that you guys can find each other. All right, so we're on Facebook. We're on Reddit. We're on X. We're on Instagram. We're on Spotify, which you can find this music on too. We're on Amazon Podcast. We're on Patreon, YouTube, Tumblr, all that stuff. Like this, I'm getting this out everywhere. Whichever one of these social media platforms that you like, share this. Share it, please. Get it out there. Push it as hard as you can. This is a really important message today. We have to stand up. We have to band together. And this could be the anthem that starts it. This could be the catalyst that brings people together. A song we can all listen to. A short, 4 or 5 minute song that says some very powerful words that may help you bring some more barbarians into your tribe. So share it on the social media. Share it with your friends. Hell, just listen to the song with them and talk about it. Tell them where you heard about it at, right? But word of mouth, we gotta spread. We gotta grow. We gotta be big enough to fight back. So get out there every day. Get better. Get stronger. Because anything less is unacceptable.